Good morning. I hope you're having a wonderful summer. I know I am. It's very, very busy. And despite the sadness, despite the pain of having to move the farm, I can say the summer is still pretty good. I can say, well, thank goodness I have the energy to move the farm. Thank goodness I had where to move the farm to. Thank goodness. For so many things, I always thought, okay, it's producing. Yes, it's productive, but I didn't realize how productive the plants were over there. Because when you just look at something on the outset, it didn't look like much. I mean, to me, maybe to other people it looked like it was, something really big, but to me it was, I could see, okay, this needed work, okay, this could be more, I have to be patient, it'll grow into more. And then I had to move it, and that's when I learned how abundant it was. When you move a plant, when you move a bush, when you transplant any sort of plant, the idea is to prune it. And when you prune a bush, that's a lot of produce, and the spices and the teas, oh my goodness, just so much of it. And then I moved it, and they're continuing to produce. So wow. I learned a lot about the abundance of something that seems so small, a small space. And yeah. So what happened? What happened at the farm? Well, over the last 2 years, there has been vandalism. And it was just gradually getting more and more costly. At first, I thought, okay, it's the neighborhood youth. They're just kind of playing around, and this accidentally got broken, or that accidentally got bent, or I would find something that belonged to me outside the fence instead of inside the fence. And, I didn't really take it so seriously to begin with, because I thought, okay, what, the neighborhood youth, they're not meaning any harm. And then, as time went on, I was finding other things going wrong. Somebody had cut the upper netting, the upper fencing for the chickens, so that predators can get in. They did the same thing for the quail. I would find the water that, from the water barrels, the water was, somebody turned the handle and drained the water out. And I was like, okay, those are inconveniences. I fixed them, and I felt fortunate that the chickens and the quail didn't get eaten. But those were little things still. And then gradually it was getting more and more. I would find things clipped. I came one day to discover that all the pipes for the leading from the rooftops to the water containers were crushed, not just removed. Well, in the beginning it was removed, and then in March I found them completely removed and crushed, like somebody had crushed the pipes. Now, these are sewage pipes, and you don't crush them with your hands. You have to crush them with a tool, and they were totally crushed. And okay, so then I started thinking, okay, this is not, I mean, none of it was normal. My gate had been completely collapsed. Like, they just totally collapsed the gate. I noticed that the stairs that I had built, they were cut into, and then like screws were loosened. I'm like, okay, this is not the youth. This is not like, and I started thinking, like, who would be doing this? And there's a list of people I could think of that could possibly be doing this, but it was still really hard for me to think that, they would, because on other levels, we're friendly. And, they were always saying, oh, this would never work, you're crazy, you're stupid, why would you do farming this way? That's ridiculous. Commercial farming is where it's at, technological farming is where it's at. And I would try to explain to them that technological farming today is actually going back to nature. And even like on the Israeli kibbutzim, they're really trying to, mimic nature, and they're trying to do things more naturally. They're trying to reduce the chemicals. They're trying to reduce they're trying to reduce the impact that modern commercial farming has on agriculture. But they're like, no. Okay, fine, whatever. Didn't argue, and I was like, that's fine. But then I was noticing I would arrive in the morning and my trees are knocked over, knocked over. Not just leaning from them, but knocked over completely. What? And then, one tree was knocked over, I would stand it back up again, and the following week, somebody cut it, sawed it off at the base. Just totally killed the tree. And then the following week, more trees I found. I was like, that was it. So I made the decision, I can deal with other things. I cannot deal with somebody killing my trees, like just slicing them, and I can't do that. So I made the decision that I was going to leave the farm. And I had to do it fast because, if the first time I found the trees knocked over and then I found them cut, and then the following week I find more trees knocked over, what are the chances that a week later those are going to be cut too? So I had to come home and I had to figure out what was going on. So I spent quite a few hours examining my yard here at my house, on paper, redesigning everything. Where can I put everything? I had 37 trees, along with all kinds of bushes, spices, teas. I had all my containers that were on the deck. I had my pond. Everything had to go. Everything had to be moved. I didn't want to leave anything behind. So I had to redesign my yard. Now my yard is really small. My house stands on a 570 square meter lot. Well, it's not exactly 570 square meters. Even though I had rights to 570 square meters, I only built on 500 meters because the way the plumbing is. So, hold on for a second. Let me see. There you go. You see that? I'm distilling some plants to get some hydrosols and oils. Over here, there's my fence. Okay, my fence is on a rock wall, and my property extends a little bit further than that rock wall. It is a retaining wall because, as you notice, the landscape on the other side of my fence is a slope. And on the other side of this rock wall is a sewage pipe, for the sewage. And we couldn't cover the sewage pipe. We couldn't bury it so deep. So we had to put the retaining wall on this side of that sewage pipe. So my property actually extends further. So it's really only around 500 square meters, which is half a dunam. And 1/3 of that, one second, telephone. Sorry about that. We get telephone calls sometimes. Anyway, so I had to design everything from the farm into my yard. And somehow I did it. with two exceptions. One olive tree and one fig tree had to stay at the farm because their roots were way too deep and the trees were just very solid. And I said, okay, I'm going to give them a chance. I'm going to see how it works if I don't water them. Let's see how it works. Well, we're coming now on 2 months later. They're not getting watered and they're doing beautifully. Even in the middle of this heat wave, they're doing beautifully. So, okay, they're staying there. I'm not moving them. There's no way I would have been able to move them anyway by myself. Maybe if I would have gotten a tractor or something, I don't know. In the meantime, everything that I transplanted has either recovered fully or is in the process of recovering. I have 3 trees that are still dry. I know that they're still alive. I see that they're starting to bud the leaves. I'm going to give it a little bit of a chance because it is summertime. But I know one thing for certain. If I had not transferred them, it would have been 100% death for those trees. So I did the best I could. So out of 37 trees, 1 was cut down dead. And I mean, just a straight saw across the base of the tree. And 2 of them stayed. So that means that I transferred 34 trees into my already packed yard. I have a friend visiting from New York. She helped me move 5 of them. All the others, I moved myself. So I've been busy. And even the tree that was cut at its base, it had been cut that evening. So I trimmed it and it is now sitting in my pond in my backyard. I'm hoping maybe I can successfully root it. So I haven't given up even on that one. I don't give up easily on my plants. So how do I feel? Well, I went through about 3 weeks of every time I went to the farm, I cried. It was hard. It was very, very painful. And then as I'm seeing things develop in my yard, I realized that, okay, this is not such a bad situation. I mean, the circumstances behind it were terrible. But I'm an optimistic person by nature, so I can see the advantages of having everything here in my yard. I don't feel like I have as much room to grow. Like space-wise, I can't really expand the space and grow. However, if I'm not talking about the growing aspect of expanding the actual gardening space, there's a lot more room to grow from a business aspect and from a permaculture aspect. Everybody thinks of a farm as being large, spacious, when the truth is with permaculture is we want the ground covered. We want the soil to be built up by plants. We want friendships and economy between the plants, and the roots in the soil. So when you have a smaller space, it's easier to create that economy in the soil. And yes, I have a lot of trees. What do I have? 60 something trees. 70 something. I don't know. I have to go through and count them all. But I realized that here in Israel, there is sun. Sun. Lots of sun. Look at this. Not a cloud in the sky. Not a cloud. Do you see that? A cloud in the sky. So when you are in the United States, or you're in Europe, or you're someplace where it rains, weekly or every other week or something, you've got clouds in the sky. And then those clouds provide some sort of shade. Well, here in Israel, we don't have the shade. So when you plant in North America trees this far apart, because they have to have the sunlight. Well, here in Israel, you can plant the trees this far apart because they need the shade. So I have trees that get this half of the day, and then this tree gets the second half of the day of sunlight. And they're doing beautifully, and they're producing loads of fruit. That's the interesting thing also, is that the trees that I had transplanted with fruit on them, I was like, oh no, there's a fruit. You're not supposed to transplant with fruit. You're not supposed to transplant with fruit. But it's either that or they're going to die. So I transplanted them with the fruit, and the trees I did not prune. And I'll get into that in another video. But the fruit continued, and I was able to harvest apples. I was able to harvest plums. It was nice. So there are advantages to having the smaller space. There are disadvantages because I cannot expand. As far as a business goes, as far as showing people how you can turn your yard into a living, productive farm, food production, this is excellent. This is absolutely excellent. And so there are still positives about it. I'm hurt. Every time I go to that area, I still have to go sometimes because I still have quail there. I haven't exactly finished the quail pen at my house enough that I can move those quail over here. And I still have grapes that I'm waiting for them to harvest, for them to ripen to harvest. And I have like pumpkins or squash or something over there growing, I forget which, that also I have to go over there for. And, so I go over and it just pinches. It pinches. There's a saying in Hebrew, it's called Gamzu Letova. Even this is for the good. Like something terrible happens, it's probably a good thing. You can't see it now, but it's probably a good thing. I have summer camps for elementary school kids, day camps, and it was supposed to be over at the farm. Instead, it's here at my house. That's a challenge. But it's working out. So I am an optimistic person. Somebody must be sending me pictures. I'm an optimistic person. I don't like to focus on the negative. If something is negative, I deal with it, and I try to find solutions, and I just move on from there. And that's how we feel about it. There's no sense to being angry. There's no sense to being resentful. Being angry and resentful doesn't help anybody. It doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't make you feel better. It doesn't punish the other person. It doesn't punish the culprits even. Like, there's no sense to being angry and resentful. The only productive and sensible thing to do is to find solutions that work, move forward, and just take things as they come and do the best you can. And that's what I've done. So that's how I feel about it. Until next time.